Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Now, we all want to do our bit for the planet, but how do we prepare our business for this sustainability journey? Where do we even start? Today, my co-host, CEO of Pierlite, Gus Arianto, and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Mike Spirkovski, founder of Sustainability Revolution. Mike is one of Australia's most recognised and awarded creative leaders and has spent the last 25 years developing highly memorable and effective ideas in the world of advertising. Mike is the former National Chief Creative Officer at Saatchi and Saatchi Australia, where he led the company to be Australia's most awarded agency. Mike is currently ranked #1 Chief Creative Officer in Asia Pacific and the 7th most creative CCO in the world. Mike is here today to help us begin our sustainability journey while teaching us about the importance of creative branding and marketing for business. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Natalie and Gustav. It's great to be here, and thanks for that incredible introduction. I wish you could read that to my mother. I think she'd really appreciate it.
Mike, that was a tough introduction. You are gonna expand on this, and for our listeners, that is only a small snapshot of the incredible awards, boards that Mike's on. You will tell us more about it. So,
and this is why we like you, Mike. You know, we introduce you as one of the world's best, and we thought you will be quite formal, and then you bring the topic how we can sell this to your mom. We love you, Mike. Thank you for donating your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
And Mike, we always begin our show with 2 fun questions that we ask our guests, and the 2 we have for you. The first one is, what is the best book you have ever read?
Oh, that's a good one. I've kind of got 3. I can't really do one. I think the best book I've ever read was definitely *Sapiens* by Yuval Harari, which I have this fascination with human behavior, and it just understanding how humans have evolved over, from sapiens to where we are today just blows my mind. And then probably the next one that was again very similar and linked. Was a book called *Breath* by James Nestor, which teaches you about the dangers of breathing through your mouth. And I've since ever since reading that book, I stopped breathing through my mouth. And he said, it's one of those books you just need to read to understand what I'm talking about. But when you read it, it'll blow your mind on the health benefits and the performance benefits of actually breathing through your nose, which is why your nose is actually there. And then the final book, which I'm reading at the moment, which again is actually very relevant to all of us and everyone on the call, is a book called *Stolen Focus* by Johann Hari. And it actually teaches you, and it goes into deep studies about how distracted we are as humankind due to technology, and how inefficient we have become in everything that we do because of the constant distractions. Whilst we think we can multitask, multitasking is a term that was derived from computer processors in the 60s and applied to humankind, but we can't multitask. No matter how much you think you can, you just can't, and you become incredibly inefficient and you lose focus. So it's a really big problem, and technology has a lot to do with that. So they're my 3, but my latest one is probably my favorite at the moment because it's just doing my head in.
What was that last one called, Mike? Sorry, I always add these.
No, it's called *Stolen Focus* by Johann Hari. It's
Sounds really interesting.
And if you got children, it's a must read. Yeah.
No, that is a good one. Added to the list. Okay, if you had a time machine, would you go back in time or into the future? I really wanted to ask you this one.
Really simple. I'd go right into the future, because then I would learn all of the mistakes that we've made and then come back and just prevent them from happening. It's just so simple, because you look at where we are today and you think, far out, look at all the things that we have done that we never knew we were doing. And we think we're doing something good when in fact we're not, because we don't know yet. We haven't worked out that it's bad, because we can't see that far forward. So especially when it comes to the topic of today, which is around, sustainability, in particular environmental. If we knew coal was going to do what it's doing, at the beginning, we probably would have never started with it. And just like current technologies that are being created, there's actually major issues with even all the brilliant things that are happening with EV, solar panels, and there's so many issues that are actually in them, but we're hopefully rectifying them. So if you could fast forward to, 20, 30 years from now, I think you'd learn a lot. And then come back and go, no, we shouldn't actually start solar. We should start this new thing because it's going to rectify things. So yeah, that's how I do it.
Brilliant answer. And, I mentioned before to the audience, that was a really brief introduction that I gave of Mike. So Mike, we're going to hand it over to you. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your amazing career and your new business? Relatively new. I think you've been in it for a few months now.
Oh yeah, it's really fresh. Look, my history is pretty simple, whilst it might sound complex. I'm a creative guy. I'm an ideas person. I think I've always been like that from even being a child. And I started in design, graphic design, as a young little lad. But I was always, thinking about things, fixing things, making things, making one thing do many things. And as you know, innovation and ideas and technology, a lot of people say there's nothing really new. It's a combination of 1 and 2 that makes something new, or 1, 2, and 3, because we've progressed so far that what we do is we combine things. And I think for me, that's probably how I started thinking even way back when I was young. And, advertising was one of those jobs I fell into because it was creative. I used to look at sort of cornflakes boxes and packaging in stores, and then I'd connect them to TV and print and go, wow, this is really cool. Who does this? And I kind of just sort of went in reverse. I went from like, I even did pre-production, pre-press, graphic reproduction, which is a trade that no longer exists. And that taught me a lot. And sort of went from the printing factory. I remember working in a printing factory and watching these boxes get chopped up and glued together. And I kind of came in through the back end of that and ended up going right up the other way. So in reverse, and then went up into, the guy who writes the ads, or the guy who actually creates those brands, helps, physically create a brand. And it was an amazing experience and an amazing journey of really just trying to understand. It was really a journey. Like I sort of found something that I wanted to follow and work out how it worked. To then it getting, advertising, we spoke about this earlier around how advertising, I think there's a misconception around advertising. When I think of advertising as a term, I kind of hate it because it chases me around the internet, and no matter where I go, it's there. And I think advertising is annoying, is intrusive. It can be everywhere, but there's some pretty amazing stuff that happens in the world and the business of advertising, which is, innovation, solutions for really big brands, around products, creating new products, creating those innovations that come with that, creating big brand acts along the way that, inspire people to, get behind something and make a change, or, help the less fortunate. So I think in a nutshell, that's sort of where my career evolved to. And as you mentioned, my most recent job was by far one of the best jobs I've ever had, and was very lucky. It was a dream of mine to work at Saatchi and Saatchi. And when I got that job about 9 years ago, I was beside myself that I'd finally got the big CCO gig at Saatchi and Saatchi Australia, and couldn't believe it, to be honest. I was quite surprised they gave it to me. And then had probably the best time of my life working there, around some of the most amazing people, amazing clients, working on brands like Toyota, nationally, and so many amazing brands along the way in all categories, and learning a lot, but really helping those brands make some significant changes and do some great work like Land Cruiser Emergency Network for Toyota, was like a great idea. Would I sort of look at it, we advertise vehicles, but then why are we as a company, Saatchi and Saatchi, creating a telecommunications network for a car company?
Mm-hmm.
And that's because we're solving a problem. So what we do, to give you an example, is Toyota create a vehicle that can go anywhere. In fact, it can go anywhere. It can take you to the ends of the earth and back, essentially, a Toyota Land Cruiser. The reality is when a brand like that creates something so amazing that can take you anywhere, but then when you get there and you can't communicate with anybody, it's actually a risk for that brand, because they're actually giving you something that takes you somewhere where there's no comms. So what we do is that's the problem for us. We're like putting our drivers to a degree, we're not physically putting them in danger, but where our product is taking them anywhere, but there's no communication. Telstra can't supply it. Optus can't supply it. Satellite phones don't work because you have to be in line with it. Plus, if there's cloud cover, it doesn't work. So we went, how can we create it? How can we create communications? And we deal with professors in universities, start talking to remote specialists in communication, and we find a way that we can actually create a mobile meshnet communication network that's a pop-up that can go anywhere, that's in every Land Cruiser. And they just connect to each other using phenomenal technology from NASA, and all sorts of other things. And even going back to, old technology, we took radio frequency, which is, 100-year-old technology, and we piggybacked Wi-Fi on it. And we took Wi-Fi, which, as you would know, only travels, say, like 100 meters, but we threw it 25 kilometers. Because we threw Wi-Fi on the back of radio frequency. So we hacked it and we could throw Wi-Fi 25K, which would be amazing if you could put that in your home, right? Because you could actually service everybody. But that's the sort of stuff that I love. It's where I'm dealing with people who are so smart, and I'm learning so much about things that I have no idea about. But then that takes me into a completely different world of exploration and excitement and interest, and even further, right? So that, and a combination of many other ideas which you've seen, like Earth Hour back in 2007, 16 billion supporters worldwide now, still going, started in Sydney with 2 million people. Most recently, Donation Dollar, where we minted a brand new currency in Australia to help, a simple coin that is designed to be donated and not spent. So when you find it in your hand, give it to someone, put it in their hat, their guitar case, or, in their hand, or drop it into a donation bin, right? These are ideas that are all generated from care and help and support, and to a degree are sustainable, are in that world of sustainability, because they're about improving society, improving the environment. And these are the things that over my career led me to, actually, I don't want to do anything else. I just want to work like this. I just want to focus on doing work 100% in this field, as opposed to also making all those other ads. I just don't think I need to be doing that. I want to focus and put all my energy in doing good for both planet and humanity, and use all my skills and knowledge that I have and I've learned, and all the people that I know and have connected to actually drive in the same direction and help inspire Australia and the world to just do better in those areas. That's really it. That's what Sustainability Revolution is. It's me and a bunch of amazing people who are wanting to work with great brands and great people to just do more good, and amplify great products, great services, things that are actually doing positive change or making positive change, as opposed to just consumption, just a product with no real reason in it.
Mike, I have a question for you before we get into really the depth of sustainability revolutions and what is sustainability all about. What is that really mean for small and medium business? When you describe your story from when you are still very young, expose yourself to a basic advertising. You see the box of cornflakes, TV, to creating mega advertising. Remove the word advertising. I just want to touch the creativity mind of you and your team, including now with your new company, Sustainability Revolutions. You are surrounded by creative people. Now, I wanna compare it. I'm a owner of a cafe. I just say, I'm not creative, Mike. I just know how to make steak sandwich. Right? How do I push myself so I can have creative mind? What kind of, in your experience, can you share with us the typical personality of creative person? How can we, mom and dad, small business owner, learn every day from the time we wake up, so we can be creative, and we can improve our creativity every day?
It's a really good question. It's quite a big question, actually, but a good one. I think there's different levels of creativity, in terms of how far you can go. Like, to be able to come up with an innovation requires a real understanding and depth. But I think if you come back to the basic point where you go, I run a sandwich shop, and you're running a sandwich shop and you think, how can I be creative? How can I really stand out and make my business actually have a personality? And I think you just got to come back to you and go, what is my purpose and what is my point of difference, right? So come back, because essentially the sandwiches that you're making and selling are clearly good because you actually have a store, or you have a shop, and you have a bit of a market, and people are coming there. So therefore you're already doing something, you're relevant. But if you really want to expand, grow, or create more, I think you got to dig deep within yourself and find that thing that you do that's really, really unique and really special. And you might find that where it goes all the way back to being a little kid, watching your mum and dad or whatever make these amazing sandwiches. And it was the way that you made those sandwiches in a really authentic, traditional way. It was mama's recipe, dad's recipe. It was something connected to your culture. And suddenly you start to go, okay, we're really unique because it's the way we layered the bread, the sandwiches, that makes it unique. And the way the palate and the tongue touches the bread versus the mayonnaise versus the ham. If you flip it, it probably tastes different. And there's something, right? So I think everyone can be creative in that sense, because the product that they're selling or the business that they have, whatever it is, it comes from them. So I think you always have to look into you and go, well, why are people buying me and why are people using me? They clearly like me. So why don't I try and expand on that and try and make it really unique? That's where I would start, is just come back to your purpose, your vision, and the thing that really, I always it's like one thing brands really need is to be really unique and to have a story. Because how many times do you see, you go research online and you see so many companies that sell the same product, say the same thing, and you don't know what to pick up. And what you do is you naturally look for the unique thing. So you research and you're like going, what stands out to me? And soon as something stands out and it looks interesting and it sounds interesting, it's actually interesting. So you're lured towards it because it's different, it's unique. But if you become vanilla or gray like everybody, you're actually just going to stay there. So find your unique point of view, your unique, insight about yourself and your business, and just try and make it like super unique and super fresh regarding you. And that's where you go. And then I get from there, you just evolve. Like I said, there's different levels of creativity. I think there comes a point where you have to hand over the creative to those people. Like I take my job to a certain point and then I go, okay, you're the design specialist. I need you to do that. You're the amazing copywriter. You need to do that. You're the great filmmaker. You do that. You're the data guy. You do that. So you always have to know that you can't do everything. And sometimes that's I think a lot of businesses make the mistake where let's just say they're a chef and a cook, but now they're writing ads. No, because I can write ads, but I can't be a chef. So you just have to accept the fact that there's other professions out there that are good. And when you feel that your idea is amazing, and you're stubborn about it and you don't care what people think, it's highly likely that it's rubbish. And it's actually going to do you damage. So I think getting professional opinions from people who, as we say, are paid to do that is always critical. If you can't afford it, there's always ways of finding people who can help, you know? So yeah, there's a little barometer of research. I think
So am I right to summarize that number? I love when you say it about purpose, because once I read a book, I can't remember the book, but they said if everyone in the world run their business the way they chase their first love, that business will be winning. Their business will be winning. You will have 1,000 ideas how to deliver that first letter. You know, yet when we run a business, we collapse on the first rejections. And so you start with the purpose, and then you said finding help required open minds. I think you can't find help if you're not open minds. I mean, you end up talking, but you're not listening, and being curious is the other thing, isn't it? Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah,
I was listening to that, and I'm just thinking all our listeners are just going, we need Mike on our team. Like, it's just the way you think and the way you just explained it, because, you know, it is quite hard to be creative, especially, you know, for I guess a carpenter on the tools or a chef who's busy in the kitchen. You don't have that time to actually dedicate to what it takes to actually be creative. So you're right. Like when you mentioned that, you know, it's okay to ask for help, or, you know, it's okay to get someone else to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I can renovate houses, and I've done many of them, but I don't do them well. And when I get a professional to do them, it's amazing. You know, like I think we all like to think we can do a lot. And I think creativity has become more accessible for a lot of us because of technology and, you know, social media and whatnot. But it doesn't mean that what you're doing is amazing. You've just got to really get advice. I think, Gus, as we were talking, it was reminding me of, like, you know, where I see a lot of brilliance is when you look at those TV shows that happen in the States around the, you know, those food trucks. And you know how the food trucks have taken off, and you look at these families, right? These owners of these food trucks, they come from nothing, like nothing, poverty, but they have this amazing way they cure the meat, you know, or they make something such a unique way, and they just sell that. You know, the history of their grandfather or grandmother and the way they made that cured that meat, and that's what makes it unique. And they build the whole thing. They get a logo of their grandfather or their grandmother, they call it grandfather, granddad, mamas, and they just stick to that, and they go, that's what we're selling, because that is our unique proposition, our unique point of view. That is what's going to stand out from everybody else. And it does, because people go, actually, I want to try this 150-year-old cured meat sandwich. You know, because that's the unique part of it. So some people just don't realize that that's actually the benefit for the consumer. It's that story. Find your story.
It's great. And while we're still on this topic, because then once we start talking about sustainability, I know we're going to run out of time because there's lots of questions there. But I just want to ask you about, you know, we've seen so many online-only businesses just absolutely bloom. Like it's, you know, purely an online presence. How, from your perspective and everything you've done, this whole social media, how important is it for all businesses to actually embrace social media, to take it on board? Because we have discussions with people that, you know, even recently I had a chat to someone, 17 years in the business, they don't have a website yet. So we're embarking on exactly my reaction. You know, they get to a point, you know, the leads kind of stop, but they have no online presence. What is your advice to those that are not yet online?
You are losing a lot of business by you're not playing in the world. There's a lot of stubbornness that happens. A lot of people don't want to change. And I think for those of you who haven't seen it, I advise watching a show on Netflix called The Playlist, which is about Spotify. And you will understand what happens when stubbornness in a business like the music industry at the time. They failed to adapt. So I think the biggest thing is you need to adapt to society as it evolves around you. And a lot of us that are traditional, we go, oh, no one's going to take, social media is not going to take off. You know, it's not going to work. I've never used it. It doesn't work. My business is fine. Problem is, your business is fine until all your clients start seeing all these other businesses that they never saw before online. And they start seeing all these opportunities and they start seeing competition. Meanwhile, your competition has embraced technology, has embraced social media, is marketing for free or at a minimal cost now. And you're going, no, I'm sticking to word of mouth. I've got great clients. But now they're going, hold on. I've seen a lot of other businesses now that are popping up left, right, and center. Actually, and they're actually really well priced. And they got a great brand. And they've got reviews. Look at all these people talking about how amazing they are. Look at all these photos of all these excellent jobs they've done. Suddenly your business starts shrinking. So I think if you don't adapt to the industry or society in that way, you're not going to survive. It's actually proven. You're not going to survive. You will only retain where you are with your loyal customers, but even they will start drifting. So I highly advise you to embrace the market, the tools that are put in front of you in order to grow your business. And a website is not expensive. It's so cheap now to create. You can actually create it yourself if you want. There's lots of platforms out there. So yeah, but yeah, check out the playlist, Spotify story, and it will actually make you understand. Give for those, you only have to watch a few episodes. You don't want to watch it all, but you'll see what was going on and a stubborn music industry that wasn't willing to change and embrace, streaming media.
And you know what's funny about all this, Mike? Sometimes the lines between the stubbornness of some business owners, whether they want to have social media or not necessarily they don't want it. They could be just literally busy and lazy in investing further of their time. Yeah. The reality is, I think by now, I could be wrong here. I think people agree that in the absence of branding and social media presence, it will be very difficult to compete, because every original ideas that we thought is available on the internet today.
Absolutely.
I
can give you fact, right? And this is true. So during the recession, the brands that advertised heavily, that doubled down. So those big companies that we were sitting at home watching TV, and during COVID, right, the beginning of COVID, every brand that doubled down in marketing, because a lot of people pulled out, they're like, oh, wow, world's going to change. We're in trouble. We're all going to fail. Let's retract our communication. Let's retract our marketing, right? Doesn't make sense, because things are struggling. Like everyone's worried, people aren't moving, and everyone's retracting. But if you're a business, you have to survive. So there's no point stopping, right? The thing is, you got to keep going. And the businesses that actually doubled down and actually took a punt, and the word punt's not appropriate, but they invested in, they actually grew when others failed because of their marketing and their promoting of their business and their confidence. So confidence is a big deal. When markets or industries are flat, but you seem confident as a business, you make people confident in themselves to continue. And that's how we get out of things. So this is all proven. It's all written as data information out there for people. You research it online, you'll find it. So yeah, it's important to always communicate, to not be lazy. If you want to grow your business and you want your business to be successful, communicate. It might be in little simple ways that are really cheap and easy for you to do, but just do them. The worst thing you can do is be quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree there. And you're right with the COVID. I even remember like the innovation that came out of some, restaurants that went ahead and they were doing deliveries. They've never done that before, but they were, I even, saw there was someone that was offering picnic hampers when we were allowed to go back outdoors. They were a restaurant, but people couldn't come to them. So, hey, pick up your picnic hamper. That innovation and the ads that were going out about it. Yeah, you'll never forget those.
No. It was actually, you're 100% right. Businesses innovating in order to kind of progress, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Like that's where you start to see, I think, humanity at its best, where they're like down, but they start thinking, how do we survive? How do we grow? And they've done so well out of it.
Yeah. Completely agree. I am going to switch this talk to sustainability because we were going to start with that, but we got straight into the marketing, which we could talk about for the whole hour, Mike. It's just really, you've got so much to offer, but I also know how passionate you are about sustainability. It's a topic that Gus and I really want to learn about from you as well. And I'm sure our audience does. So if we take it right back with sustainability, so that they understand, so the audience understands when we talk about sustainability in business, what are we actually referring to?
Yeah, it's a really good question because it's just the word sustainability is such a buzzword at the moment. Everyone's talking about it, an awful good cause. There's a couple of different points of view, right? I think a lot of what we were talking about is actually incorporated in sustainability, right? It's about success of your business. It's, making a bit, but I think in general, to really kind of unpack it, and I have put some notes here just so it's clear and crisp for people. When we talk about sustainability in business, what we're actually referring to is it's about asking yourself the question around what does this business need to do to ensure long-term sustainable impact across its staff, right? Clients, culture, diversity, inclusivity, innovation with your products and services, impact on the environment and carbon footprint. So in general, that's how you frame sustainability. Sustainability is about how do I make my business sustainable so it's successful into the future across all of these aspects. And when we talk about all of those aspects, it's about, like I said, your people, your culture, and your carbon footprint, because sustainability isn't just about, I think when we hear environmental sustainability is different to business sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
It does. And that's why we asked the question.
It's actually very, very clear, Mark. I will do the wrap up, but I can't repeat exactly like that. So while I'm writing it down, when I go into that, I will ask you to read that again. because
it's great. It's great definition.
So I will, when I go there, I said, Mike, can you please read it again? That is perfect.
Yeah, because it is, when people think of sustainability, and this is why we ask the question, they're going to default to environmental sustainability. But it is so much more than that.
Yeah, it is. It's all of that. So just literally just have to think, how is my business going to be sustainable into the future and have impact on both my culture, my people, and the environment? It's a combination effect, but you got to look at everything, because the word sustainable has been around forever. You know what that means to a degree. It's just when you frame it sustainability, and then then the complexity. I think what's complicating it for everyone is, ESG. They hear ESG and then sustainability, and I get confused too. I didn't even know about ESG until like a couple of years ago, and I still don't really know what it means, but I'll have a go at it. We
are going to ask you the question though. But I also think this is where clever marketing has come into play, because when we see sustainability, eyes associate it with green, right? Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people do. Yeah. So by default, my brain goes environment, so it's very cleverly marketed out there towards that. That's why, it's really important for everyone listening that it is so much more than that.
So can I ask a question though?
Yeah, sure.
Because sustainability is not only about green. I'm a small business owner. It sounds expensive, Mike. It sounds expensive for my business to even be thinking about it. Is this right? No. Is this right? No.
I don't think so at all. I think a lot of what we talk about in sustainability is how do I treat my staff with care and kindness? How do I pay them fairly? How do I make sure I have a very inclusive business? How do I make sure I have women in leadership roles that are equal, to males? These are not things that cost you anything. These are just behavioral things that you just need to change in the way that you do things. And then when you go into the environmental aspect, yes, that's where things might change a little bit. You go, well, how do I think about my energy company and reducing my emissions? You know, do I switch energy companies, which is not actually expensive. It's just smart, you know, moving away from companies like Energy Australia, who in their name say they're Australian, but are not. They're owned by, you know, they're owned by 100% owned by a Chinese company. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But you sort of wonder, is it really the business that I want to be taking my energy from when I could be going to an example, Red Energy, which is an Australian company owned by the government, but Australian company, it's 100% renewable. It costs you no more to be with them. But there's little things like that, where you get your paper from, your toilet paper, things like that. Like, you know, Who Gives a Crap is an amazing company, and, you know, they don't chop trees down to make your toilet paper. So as opposed to when you go to Woolies and Coles and you see all those sorbent toilet tissues that my mum, I know, hoards by the barrel, you know, it's wrong. And it's just, we just got to educate people. So it's actually not, I don't think it's more expensive at all. I think it's actually just smarter. And we need, the biggest problem we have is that we're not educated. None of us, we just don't know. So that's my job. That's what I'm trying to do now, is try and help people understand that in order to be sustainable, it's actually not expensive, and actually anyone and everyone can do it tomorrow in a really, really simple way, by simply changing the brands and the companies they associate with, by going to brands that are doing good versus ones doing not so good. And this is how we create major change across the country and across the world, by highlighting those businesses and brands that are doing brilliant versus not. That's how change happens. And you do it on scale. So it's very simple. It's not actually complicated, but there's a really big educational piece that needs to happen.
And when you actually digest that, it is actually potentially reducing the cost of your business. So let's just talk about something: diversity, inclusions.
Yeah.
You know, if you are a small business and you think that men the only one that have the answers, then it becomes very expensive. If your salon, for example, if you have a business of a salon where 80% of your employee are women, and you only want to get opinion from men, then you have to hire outside. Yet the answers will be there. Your ability to be sustainable, your ability to be inclusive, to accept diversity, women in leadership,
everything,
treating employee fairly, for example. It makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, that's all part of sustainability, and that's all about change, right? See, that's all societal change. You know, a lot of things, actually one major thing that business owners don't realize now, once upon a time, business owners used to interview staff and interview new staff coming on board. The difference now is that businesses are interviewed by those staff. So think about that, because you got such a lack of employees locally now. There's just not enough people for especially if we're talking to, you know, cafe owners who would know, if there's on this call anyone in the hospitality industry, I know what they're doing at scale, because they're actually now paying people up front in order to get them in. So you think about it. If I'm a young 21-year-old, someone who's desperate to own my own restaurant one day, and I want to go get a great job in a good restaurant, I'm actually interviewing the restaurant and the owner of that restaurant to see if they adhere to my purpose, my values, my beliefs, right? Because there's 20 of them offering me jobs right now. So remember that as a business owner, you're not really in charge of that individual, as in control of them anymore. They're in control of you. You should be fighting for them. So you need to adapt and change your business to lure them in. And you need to tick off all these boxes, you know, everything related to inclusivity, you know, diversity. You got to start thinking about appropriate pay, bonuses, structures. Like, what are the benefits that employees are going to be getting over your competitor down the street? So this is the new world we're in now, where the youth of the, you got sort of millennials, but you got now even go right down to Gen Z. I call Gen Z, my daughter's 11. She's forensic. Like she's 11 years old and she researches everything already. So she won't buy or want to participate with a business that's actually doing harming humans, harming people, slave labor, or harming the environment. She won't buy a product. So, she's 11, she loves kind of, all the care products, and she will only participate or buy from someone who uses recycled packaging, as 100% biodegradable or whatever it is. It doesn't hurt the ocean animals, sea creatures, and they're 11. And if they're doing that at the age of 11, look at what you're dealing with. Look at the people you're trying to hire. So if you're not, and they're actually younger, right? So they're not ready for the workforce. But if you're not, as a business, have a plan for everything that I just mentioned, you're actually in trouble, because a lot of businesses are. And that's part of sustainability. It's part of having all your ducks in a row, ticking off all those boxes, having a plan, and selling the awesome candidate sitting in front of you on all the things that they can benefit from working for you and being a part of your organization.
Yeah. Such an interesting way when you flip it, isn't it? Where they are in charge as opposed to the leader. Anyone listening today, that, they're the owner of the business. Yeah. But it's a different way of how employees need to be treated. And it is so true, Mike, everything you've just said. Can I just ask before we go on, we mentioned the acronym ESG earlier, just so the audience knows. I've marked it here because even, I've looked it up, but I hear it, I read about it, but it's never really explained. Can you just touch on that? What is ESG?
ESG means environmental, social, and governance. And, first time I heard it, I didn't really understand what it meant, but it's essentially, it's a higher level, right? So it's a set of standards, essentially, right? So if you look at it as a set of standards and a measure for an organization to adhere to as a benchmark, right? So I've like I said, it's complicated, but it takes into consideration like an entire territory, an entire country, our national goals, the government is setting, goals that the globe is setting when it comes to environment, social, right? But at the end of the day, like I really leave ESG to the experts. It's above my pay grade. But if you dig back into it, so if you come back a layer and go, let's just say a company like Coles, they have a massive ESG strategy. And if you go on their website, you can actually go straight to their website and you'll see download ESG strategy. Within that, it's accessible for all of us. It'll tell you what they are doing in order to meet the standards and what are they proposing they do to change their way, whether it's helping people, staff, everything I talked about, inclusivity, diversity, it's all part of it. But then also really big from a environmental point of view, like what are they doing supply chain end to end to reduce their emissions, and then governance, right? Which will be like, how is all of that governed? And so they adhere to it and they hit their targets and they meet those criteria. So it's also connected to shareholders, right? Because a company like Coles or any big brand that has shareholders and major investors, they need to sort of see what the company's ESG strategy is in order to feel comfortable to invest in, because they want to know where they're headed. Because if they're a company that doesn't have a really solid ESG strategy, and they're doomed, right? If they're headed in the wrong direction, a big investor is not going to want to be involved. And they also, shareholders have control of that these days, which is even more so now. Greenwashing, you would have heard that term quite a lot. Boards now and shareholders are demanding companies share their full ESG strategies, right, with everybody, so they can see what's going on, because they don't want to be a part of a brand that is doing any form of greenwashing. So that's if that makes sense, let me know. But that's essentially where I see it and what I've had the professionals explain it to me, the experts, sorry. It sort of sits at that higher level, but it is a standard and a benchmark for big companies to kind of I guess, measure themselves against and adhere to and give themselves a guideline and a benchmark. That's higher order, right? It's quite significant.
Is it on top of that, Mike, is there anything smaller businesses have that they kind of, I guess where I'm going is, do you envisage that all small, medium, regardless, let's not go the bigger ones, the smaller ones, will eventually need to do something similar or at least showcase what they're doing? Do you think that's the path we're going down?
Yeah, I think it's actually going to, in order for us to really meet, and when we talk specifically to environment, really for Australia will never hit the targets that we've set, that COP is setting and globally that are setting to reduce emissions globally, right? Unless we all do it together. It's not about let's put all the onus on these big companies that have been polluting and creating problems forever. Yes, they are required to change, but if you're small, you have an opportunity to change a lot faster because you're smaller, right? I always use that analogy around, a big tanker. We've all heard it. How long does it take a tanker to turn around? Like 5 miles. I mean, I'm sure they got technology now that spins them around really quickly, right? But the reality is it takes some legacy brands, big companies that have been operating for a long time and been making the same product for decades and decades. For them to change is really hard because they've been, think about their infrastructure and all of that. Whereas if you're a small company, if you're running a building firm, start looking into how can I become, really start thinking about sustainability, start really analyzing and researching concrete. Concrete's one of the world's largest has one of the world's largest carbon footprint. No one even knows that. Just to produce concrete and steel in those buildings is ridiculous, right? So start looking at companies that are innovative, that are creating new forms of concrete that have less carbon emissions. Then you do that, and if you can, you might have to charge your new your new clients a little bit more. But when you market yourself, you go, hey, we're a company that uses carbon, zero carbon concrete or whatever it is. See what I mean? It becomes a tool because someone like me won't buy from that building firm. I'm not going to go to that building firm because my whole objective in life is to become more sustainable, right? I want to look after the environment. So I'm going to automatically eliminate all of these businesses that are not focused on it. So when you start changing as a small business and picking up they're big things, but even smaller things like, whatever it is, you're just using better brands and better products that are better for the environment or better for people. Market those. So your changes that you're doing in your business, you should then tell everybody about it because people like my daughter and young demographic are researching you and won't participate with you unless you are doing it. So don't fall behind. Don't wait for the big guys. Just get onto it. It's something that has to happen.
I learned from this, just to give you a little context, Mike. So the business that I lead currently just recently sold to a global giant called Signify, which is formerly known Philips Lighting, part of Philips. Yeah. So they branded as Signify. And as a business, now I can say we are in the top companies in the world with the highest ESG ratings. And I listen to what you say because I only been with the current business for the last 5 months, and the effort globally around diversity, inclusion, pay equality, culture, end-to-end product, sustainable manufacturing. Like we innovate where we now producing product from used fishing nets and usable CD. So we actually buy old CDs, crush it, and make it a 3D printing as a light fittings.
Amazing.
And that's in the bigger scale, right? Because the company run globally. But I understand.
But it's so simple, Gus. Like if you're a coffee shop, right, and you've been making coffee the same way and operating for the last however 10 years the same way, it's very simple. Look at your supply chain and go, where's my coffee coming from? Right? Yeah. There's companies out there producing incredibly sustainable coffee beans, right? So think about that. You go, cool. Then what happens to the coffee beans? All that stuff that you knock out of the coffee beans or the waste. Where does that go? When you stick that in the bin, it's terrible for the environment. So then invest in someone that comes and picks it up and turns it into compost. You might have a garden. The coffee cups that you have, coffee cups are really confusing. I don't know where to put what in which bin. There's coffee cups that are completely like the whole thing, even the lid and the cup all go into the recycling thing. It says it on the top. I didn't know that existed, but it's educating people. So coffee beans from a sustainable supplier. The way you get rid of your coffee waste, again, it's creating a circular economy of loop. And then your coffee cups. And then you do that, and then you tell everyone about it on your website, on the front of your shop, on the front of the coffee machine, on your Instagram page. Go, we have just invested in ... I guarantee you'll get more people coming buying from you straight away.
Good for the planet too.
Yeah.
It is really interesting. Mike, you mentioned just a bit earlier about this greenwashing. Now, I know we've had a chat about it because, we've seen, a clothing giant, say that they're doing their bit for the environment, and then they're accused of greenwashing, with all this marketing and things. Can you just let our audience know what is this term greenwashing? And I guess, how do we kind of steer away from this? Because no one wants to, say they're creating exactly what you just said, this sustainable or this recyclable coffee cup with the lid and the tray. I didn't even know that all of it wasn't. Yeah, you're right. You don't even know what bin to put it in.
Yeah.
But then you don't want to be accused of this greenwashing, because this has become this word that you see in headlines quite a lot lately.
Yeah. Look, greenwashing is a really big problem, but thankfully it's still going to be a problem for a little while. But thankfully the government's cracking down on it quite extensively. The ACCC now is actually demanding it's really scrutinizing advertising and marketing, which is brilliant in terms of that. And there's a lot of companies globally being sued right now, big companies being sued for. It's people like, I go back to people like me who can come up with a really clever headline and positioning for a brand that says they're doing good for the planet, but I don't really know they're not. They've told me they can do good. So I've written a really nice line that says, oh, you are, but I don't really know all the bad they do. So greenwashing is really where a company is, in a way, they do one little thing, right? That's really, really good, but the rest of their business is really negative. And then they actually throw that little thing like a shield in front of their company, right? And their business.
Yeah.
And they promote the shit out of that, excuse the language. And that essentially is sort of going, oh, but they're really, really good. Okay. But the reality is that the back end, it's not great. It's like a decoy. And then it goes deeper when they use really clever language saying, that it's something someone, I can't remember what brand it was, recently got done in the UK, where they created an advertising campaign that said we're better for the planet. And someone complained about that. They went and dug underneath into the communications and then into the product and realized that they can't say that because it's actually not better for the planet. And they got pulled, all their communication got pulled. So tens of millions of dollars worth of advertising got pulled, and also they get fined quite significantly. And this is now happening on a global scale, which is brilliant. And it's actually forcing brands to actually really start to change, because they have been using these little strategies and tactics to kind of get out there and say, oh, we're doing really good. Major corporations will even go and buy they'll acquire a really great green company and they'll use that on their website as a way to go, but look at who we've got. And I'd buy that. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Like, I didn't realize you own that brilliant green company. But what's happening now is owners of those companies are not selling, right? It's like Patagonia. You saw what Patagonia did recently. I don't know if you saw globally, but it's companies like that will never sell to the big corporations because they know what they're actually up to. So this is what's going to force the change. We're kind of flanking all these, big, robust companies, brands, categories that are being kind of really not doing great and then are failing to change. They need to change. They need to change quickly. So the greenwashing aspect is what we're actually restricting them from communicating, which is essentially what needs to happen. At the same time, we have to be really mindful that there are some really big companies out there that are genuinely doing some great things and are changing. And we have to allow them to communicate those things, you know, and in the appropriate way. So thankfully, governments are coming in. There's lots of lawyers around, which is great. And they're actually kind of making it really complicated for these brands, and they have to adhere to a lot of stuff. So I think the next few years, you're going to start to see some very different communications coming out from companies. So greenwashing is where it's just a little bit of a decoy to lure you back into the bigger brand. A little bit like when, you know, hopefully, I don't know how far this goes, but a little bit like I go back to like McDonald's when they put the salad bar in there. I worked on that back in early 2000s. That was a brilliant idea. Let's put a salad bar in McDonald's because Super Size Me came out and destroyed their brand by saying it was really evil. And that was a pretty tough show. But, you know, you went, oh, Macca's is really bad for you, or fast food's really bad for you. Oh, they've got salad now. And so you go in to go buy a salad because you've been lured in. As soon as you get there, you look at the salad, you go, great. Can I help you, sir? Yeah, I'll have 2 Big Macs, quarter pound, and a large drink. And actually, I'll have an apple. Actually, I'll get an apple. And, you know, that wasn't really, I don't think it was their strategy to do that, but it's sort of, that'll give you an idea of what some companies can be doing, where they create a diversion. It's like a mirage over here of language and things that they promise you. Meanwhile, the machine's just chugging away, you know, in the background.
And come back to what you talk about, sustainability, not ESG. Integrity can cost money at the end.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
This greenwashing is actually you being not integral to the
honest.
story, being honest. And
authentic.
Then how can your business being sustainable if you get charged by the government to pay? Like, I mean, you can go bankrupt in
absolutely.
Yeah, if you honestly, I think if you can just be really transparent, like I love brands that actually say, do you know what, we have been responsible for creating some of the, you know, worst like impact on the planet or on people, but we're changing. We've realized our wrongs and we know it's bad. Finally, we're changing. That sense of honesty and transparency is actually trust, right? So if you don't have my trust, I'm never going to buy from you. But if you tell me that you've done something wrong and you own up to that, but tell me what you're doing to make it right, and then I will trust you again. I actually will have a lot of respect for you for being honest about where you're at as a business. So, and we're all changing. We all have to change. None of us are perfect at all. We're far from, but we're all gradually changing. And we kind of have to do it together, help each other, and just be transparent about it. But if we lie, we're going to get caught out. It's businesses are done. It's not. There's too many consumers out there that have got their eye on you now. So it's not the lawyers that you have to worry about. It's actually people like me, that people like my daughter that you have to worry about, because they're like actually investigating you.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the time, but I'm going to throw in one more question because I just want to put a painter's hat on, Mike, and just ask, you know, I'm a painter who's been in business for 25 years, right? And I guess it's not that I don't want to change. I just don't know how to lead my, you know, business to be more sustainable. What is your final piece of advice to them? What would be just something that they can do? They're listening now. They haven't done it. Maybe they are a bit stubborn, but they also don't know what to do. What is the piece of advice you'd leave them with?
I think, first of all, if you don't want to change, I don't believe people don't want to change, even if they're stubborn, especially if they're older, because they have to consider what they're leaving their planet to for their children, right? And I think you need to think what you're doing there, because your kids are going to move on and live on beyond you. So I think everyone sort of has they're not bad people. They want to change. But I think for a painter, again, very similar to like the coffee thing, right? Is just go, I've been using toxins. I've been washing my paint down the drain. I've done that. It's terrible. I've stuck paint cans in rubbish bins because I was lazy, and I don't do it anymore, but, you know, because that's what I knew. I didn't know any other way. You know, we do all these negative things that are pollutants and that are terrible, but just find and research and learn the things that you can do, because those things, exactly as I said before, that if I see an ad for a painter, I'm going to ask what paints, and I know the painters on the call, they get asked these questions. Do they use environmentally friendly paints? And if they're lying that they say they are, they're greenwashing. So you're greenwashing when you lie and say, yes, you are, because you think, how's that consumer going to even know what's in that can? They're not going to know, right? I can mix the paint from one can to another, and I've got an array of brands of cans that are saying they're green, and I can swap them, right? That's where people go to those depths, right? Yeah. So I just think, you know, be really transparent, be really honest, research, you know, use paints that are good for the environment, use products that are good for the environment, and don't pollute, but use then these changes that you've made to market yourself. And you will be better, because maybe certain demographic won't ask you these questions because they don't care. They're not educated enough. But I'm telling you now that the level of education that's going to be coming out into society over the next few years is going to be so big that everyone's going to understand everything about everything, no matter what language you speak, no matter what culture you come from, no matter how much you know. We're all going to find out about it, and everyone's going to talk about it. And it's going to be the thing where people go, oh, so you got your house painted. Who'd you use? Did they have these types of paint? I don't know. You know, and it's just going to become part of society that, because we're going to want to wear the badge, right? I'm going to want to wear the badge on my chest that says, hey, I use this sustainability painting company, just like I use these sustainability builders to build my house, just like I, you know, buy my coffee from around the corner from the company that's really sustainable and gives back to the community. Because they're the badges now. They're my defense that I'm doing something. So even if I haven't changed anything here, I'm doing something because I'm consuming from those businesses that are doing good. And that's how easy it is. See what I mean? You don't have to really change much in your own home. You just have to consume from brands and businesses that are doing good, and you're already making change.
What a brilliant answer for everyone to follow. I am looking at time. Gus, I'm going to hand it over to you to wrap up. Good luck. We've learned a lot, so good luck with the wrap up.
No problem. And Mike, just remember, I will ask you about the description of sustainability in business in the middle. All right. So I hope I do you justice here. We start talking about how to be creative, and you said to be creative, you need to understand your purpose. Your passion for your purpose will push your mind to be creative. Be open for help. Be curious. Be passionate to chase your purpose. You need to adapt to society around you. By doing that, you're preparing a performing business. If you want to be successful in business, communicate your business. Be open to communicate your business. Then we talk about sustainability in business, which I will hand over to you again for our audience, the description of sustainability in business.
So sustainability, just again, ask yourself the question, what does my business need to do to ensure long-term sustainable impact across staff, clients, culture, diversity, inclusion, innovation in my product, in my services, and also importantly, impact, on the environment and my carbon footprint.
Thank you. And the rest of the conversations, we all learn that sustainability is not only about being green. It's about preparing your business for the long journey of your success. Because when you look after your people, when you being honest, when you have integrity, when you have diversity, inclusion, when you involve ideas, you become a performing business. Mike, thank you so much for donating your time for Leader Talk. We learn a lot. I learn a lot. I'm sure Natalie and our audience as well.
I've learned a lot.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been great chatting with you guys. hope that was helpful, and happy to help. If anyone needs anything, I always just flick me a note. I don't know, I'm happy to share details, emails and things like that. And my website, you can go to my website, sustainabilityrevolution.co, and very happy to answer any questions at all. It's what I do. You can find me on LinkedIn, just under that name. I do kind of talk a lot on there about stuff, but yeah, here to help. Any questions at all.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mike. Gus, I also learned a lot. It's been we could have gone on for ages. We've actually gone over time, but thank you so much, Mike. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
Yeah,
and thank you everyone for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk or for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiact.com.au. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. And I need to